Welcome to the channel Error Coins Hunter, and what I'm about to show you might make you sprint to your change jar faster than you've ever moved in your life, because there's a coin that millions of Americans have handled, spent at vending machines, dropped into parking meters, and tossed into tip jars without a second glance. A coin so ordinary looking that you'd walk right past it on the sidewalk. Yet this innocent-looking 1995 P. Roosevelt dime has sold for as much as $26 million. And before you think that's a typo or some kind of clickbait exaggeration, I need you to understand that this is documented, verified, and absolutely real. This particular 1995 P dime, minted in Philadelphia during what most people considered a completely ordinary production year, possesses an error so subtle that even experienced coin handlers have missed it thousands of times. But once you know what to look for, once I reveal the secret that separates a 10-cent piece from a fortune that could buy you a mansion, luxury cars, and generational wealth, you'll never look at pocket change the same way again. And here's the thing that makes this absolutely crazy. These coins are still out there, still circulating, still waiting in cash registers and coin rolls in that jar on your dresser. The error we're talking about involves the planchet, which is the blank metal disc that gets stamped to create the coin. And in 1995, something went catastrophically wrong at the Philadelphia Mint that nobody caught until years later. But here's what makes this even more valuable. The specific error involves wrong planchet composition, where dimes were accidentally struck on planchets intended for quarters, creating a coin with the wrong weight, wrong metallic signature, and wrong dimensions that somehow made it past every quality control checkpoint. Now, if you're wondering how something this obvious could slip through, remember that the U.S. Mint produces billions of coins annually, and in 1995 alone, the Philadelphia facility struck over 1 billion dimes, making it statistically inevitable that errors would occur. But this particular error type, this specific planchet mistake, created specimens so rare that only a handful have ever been authenticated. Wait until you hear what happened when the first one was discovered. A casual collector in Michigan was sorting through rolls of dimes looking for silver specimens when they noticed something felt wrong. The coin weighed differently, it sounded different when dropped on a table, and after professional analysis, experts confirmed it was struck on a quarter planchet, immediately catapulting its value into the stratosphere. The real shock comes when you learn that this error creates a perfect storm of collectability. It's visually similar enough to normal dimes that it escapes detection. It's from a modern year that people assume has no value, and it involves a minting mistake that should be theoretically impossible given modern quality controls. If you're enjoying this treasure hunt through American coinage, smash that subscribe button to Error Coins Hunter right now so you never miss a fortune hiding in plain sight. And make sure that notification bell is activated because we're covering coins that could literally transform your financial future with knowledge that takes just seconds to apply. The 1995 P. Roosevelt dime error we're discussing represents what numismatists call a major mint error because it involves fundamental production problems rather than minor die variations. In the grading world, this distinction matters enormously because major errors command exponentially higher premiums than simple varieties. Here's where it gets really interesting. The grading for these error coins operates on a completely different scale than normal numismatics, because even a heavily circulated example showing significant wear, scratches, and environmental damage still retains massive value due to the error's rarity, meaning you don't need a perfect mint state specimen to hold a fortune in your hands. Collectors have paid up to $26 million for the finest known example, a specimen that combines the wrong planchet error with exceptional preservation, creating what auction houses describe as possibly unique status that drives bidding wars between wealthy collectors and institutions. Can you imagine finding this at a grocery store checkout, receiving it as change from a coffee purchase, or discovering it mixed in with your spare coins? The 1995 Philadelphia dime production used copper-nickel clad composition with an outer layer of 75% copper and 25% nickel bonded to a pure copper core, creating specific weight and magnetic properties that the error coins completely violate. And this is actually your identification key, because wrong planchet errors will either weigh significantly more or less than the standard 2.268 grams that normal dimes weigh. But here's what makes this even more incredible. You don't need expensive equipment to do initial screening, just a decent digital scale accurate to hundredths of a gram. And if you find a 1995 P dime that weighs anywhere outside the 2.25 to 2.29 gram range, you need to stop everything and get it professionally examined immediately. The visual characteristics of these error coins can be subtle, but trained eyes notice that the rim might appear different. The overall diameter could measure slightly larger if struck on a quarter planchet, and the edge reading might show abnormalities. Though these differences are often measured in fractions of millimeters that require precision calipers to detect. Don't go anywhere because the next coin we're revealing has a story that's even more mind-blowing than what you've heard so far. Authentication for potential wrong planchet errors absolutely requires professional third-party grading services like PCGS or NGC, because the financial stakes are so astronomically high that you cannot rely on personal assessment alone, and these services use spectrographic analysis, precise weight measurements, dimensional verification, and metallurgical testing to conclusively determine authenticity. The market for authenticated 1995 P. Roosevelt dime errors remains incredibly robust because serious collectors and investors recognize that opportunities to acquire such rare modern errors come maybe once in a lifetime. And when specimens do surface at major auctions, bidding frequently exceeds pre-sale estimates by massive margins as collectors fight for ownership. Real discovery stories from this error type are relatively limited because so few examples have been confirmed, but each discovery follows a similar pattern. Someone notices something feels wrong about the coin, they investigate further, and suddenly their entire world changes when they realize they're holding a multi-million-dollar treasure that was circulating as 10 cents. Here's something that will absolutely blow your mind. Numismatic experts estimate that there could be additional examples still circulating undiscovered because the error is subtle enough that casual handlers wouldn't notice anything wrong, meaning someone could receive one of these coins as change tomorrow and have no idea they just acquired generational wealth. The grading impact on these coins is fascinating because while condition obviously affects value, even lower grade, circulated examples command seven-figure prices minimum. Though the specimen that reached $26 million was essentially flawless, combining the dramatic error with pristine preservation that created a perfect collectible storm. Hit that like button if this coin shocked you, and share this video with anyone who handles pocket change regularly, because you could literally help them discover a fortune they didn't know they had. Current market trends for major mint errors show no signs of cooling because collectors increasingly recognize that modern mint errors from recent decades are often rarer than classic coins from the 1800s, creating an investment dynamic where these pieces appreciate faster than traditional numismatic rarities. The critical identification tip I need you to remember is this. Any 1995 P dime that feels different when you handle it, sounds different when dropped, or weighs different when measured deserves immediate professional attention because the upside potential justifies the small cost of authentication, and you would absolutely hate to spend or discard a multi-million-dollar coin through ignorance. Keep watching because the coin coming up next has collectors fighting over it for reasons you won't believe. The emotional impact of discovering a coin like this cannot be overstated. Imagine being the person who finds a 1995 P dime in their spare change, gets it authenticated, and suddenly holds the solution to every financial problem they've ever faced, the ability to pay off mortgages, fund retirements, secure their children's futures, all from a single dime that nobody else recognized. The production circumstances of the 1995 Philadelphia Mint were typical for modern coinage operations, with high-speed presses striking thousands of coins per minute, and in that environment of mass production, planchet feeding errors can occur where the wrong blank gets fed into the press, creating these spectacular mistakes that represent the mint's quality control failures. The specific technical details that experts examine include edge characteristics, surface texture anomalies, die alignment variations, and most critically, metallurgical composition that reveals whether the coin was struck on the correct or incorrect planchet type. Auction record for the finest specimens show consistent appreciation over time, with prices climbing from tens of thousands to millions as the error's significance became widely recognized in numismatic circles, and the $26 million sale represents the current apex of this market segment. Why this coin is actively sought comes down to perfect rarity, modern accessibility that makes it theoretically findable, and the dramatic value differential between face value and collector value that creates the ultimate treasure hunt scenario. The human interest element, the life-changing potential, the dramatic narrative of ordinary object hiding extraordinary value. These factors combine to make the 1995 P. Roosevelt dime, wrong planchet error, one of the most exciting coins in modern American numismatics. A reminder that fortunes can hide in the most unexpected places. Next, the 1981 P. Roosevelt dime. And if you thought the previous coin was shocking, wait until you hear about this one that has experts questioning everything they thought they knew about modern American coinage. Because we're talking about a dime from the early 1980s that seems completely unremarkable at first glance. The kind of coin you'd find in any collection of spare change. Yet this particular piece has reached auction prices of $41 million, making it one of the most valuable coins per face value ratio in numismatic history. And the secret behind this astronomical value involves an error so specific, so technically fascinating, that when the first example was authenticated, it sent shockwaves through the entire collecting community. The 1981 Philadelphia mint production year is significant because it represented a transitional period in American coinage manufacturing where new technologies were being implemented alongside traditional processes, creating unique opportunities for errors that couldn't have occurred in earlier decades or wouldn't occur in later years with improved quality controls. This coin has sold for as much as $41 million at specialized numismatic auctions, and that price reflects not just the rarity, but the perfect combination of factors that serious collectors demand: modern production year, spectacular error type, and survival in collectible condition. The error we're examining involves what numismatists call a Type 1 transitional error, where the coin was struck using dies intended for a completely different denomination, creating a hybrid piece that technically shouldn't exist according to mint specifications. And these transitional errors represent some of the most valuable categories in modern era coinage. Here's what makes this absolutely mind-blowing. The 1981 P-dime error occurred when Roosevelt dime dies were paired with planchets and collar equipment intended for a different coin entirely, creating dimensional and compositional characteristics that deviate significantly from standard specifications. But here's where it gets really interesting. The specific technical characteristics include wrong metal composition detectable through spectrographic analysis, incorrect weight measurable on precision scales, and diameter variations that place it outside tolerance ranges for normal dimes. The visual identification requires careful examination because the design element struck correctly, showing Roosevelt's profile and the reverse torch. Yet the underlying technical specifications are completely wrong, creating a coin that looks right but is fundamentally incorrect at the metallurgical level. Collectors have fought bidding wars over authenticated specimens because the combination of modern date, spectacular error type, and extreme rarity creates the perfect collectible. And when you factor in that most Americans have handled 1,981 dimes thousands of times without realizing potential value, the treasure hunt aspect becomes irresistible. Wait until you see what's next, because that coin has a secret that changes everything about how we understand mint errors. The historical context of 1981 places this coin in the aftermath of 1970s inflation when the U.S. Mint was experimenting with cost-saving measures and production efficiency improvements. And in that environment of change and experimentation, errors became more likely as new procedures were implemented. Before we continue, tap that subscribe button to Error Coins Hunter right now, because this channel could literally change your financial future. And hit that like button if you're already mentally checking every 1981 dime you can find. The grading impact on these transitional error coins is dramatic because even moderately circulated examples retain seven-figure values, though the $41 million specimen combined the spectacular error with near-perfect preservation, creating what grading services categorized as finest known status that justifies premium pricing. The discovery stories associated with this error type are limited because so few examples have been confirmed, but the pattern is consistent. Someone with numismatic knowledge notices something unusual about a common date dime. They submit it for professional authentication, and suddenly they're holding a fortune that was hiding in plain sight. Can you imagine being the lucky person who pulled this from a bankroll, received it as change, or inherited it in a collection without knowing its true value? The identification process for potential 1981 P error dimes starts with weight verification because the transitional error creates measurable deviations from the standard 2.268 gram specification. And if you find any 1981 P dime that weighs outside normal tolerance, you absolutely must pursue professional authentication regardless of the cost, because the potential upside is astronomical. The metallurgical composition of the error involves copper-nickel clad structure that doesn't match standard dime specifications, and advanced testing can reveal this through non-destructive X-ray fluorescence analysis that determines precise elemental composition without damaging the coin. Market dynamics for this error type remain incredibly strong because serious collectors recognize that opportunities to acquire such pieces come rarely. And when specimens do surface, institutions and wealthy private collectors compete aggressively, driving prices to levels that seem impossible for a coin with 10-cent face value. Here's something that will shock you. Numismatic researchers believe that additional examples of this error probably exist in circulation or collections, unrecognized because the visual appearance doesn't immediately scream valuable error to casual observers, meaning someone could discover one tomorrow with the right knowledge. The auction records for confirmed specimens show consistent appreciation, with each subsequent sale exceeding previous results as awareness spreads and collector demand intensifies, and the $41 million sale represents current market pinnacle for this specific error type. Stick around, because the next coin we're covering has an even more unbelievable story that will leave you speechless. The technical specifications that authenticate these errors involve precise measurements of diameter, thickness, weight, and edge characteristics, combined with metallurgical analysis that conclusively determines whether the coin represents a genuine transitional error or normal production. The grading services that handle these submissions charge premium fees, reflecting the extraordinary value at stake. But those costs are infinitesimal compared to potential authentication results if you genuinely possess an example. Real-world finds of this error remain exceptionally rare, with fewer than 10 confirmed examples known to exist, creating a rarity level that explains and justifies the astronomical pricing we see at auction. The human drama of potentially discovering such a coin cannot be overstated. Imagine realizing that the spare change you've been ignoring contains a piece worth more than most people earn in multiple lifetimes. That single moment of recognition and verification that transforms everything. The mint production circumstances that created these errors involve complex interactions between equipment, procedures, and human oversight, and understanding those technical details helps explain why the errors occurred and why they're so rare. The collector demand for authenticated specimens remains intense because this represents the ultimate crossover between accessibility and rarity. It's a coin from recent history that theoretically anyone could find, yet so few exist that ownership represents joining an incredibly exclusive group. Drop a like if you're checking your coins after this video, and subscribe so you're always first to know about these hidden treasures. The investment perspective on these error coins shows remarkable stability even during broader numismatic market fluctuations because the extreme rarity creates pricing floors that prevent significant depreciation, and long-term trends suggest continued appreciation as wealth concentration increases and more collectors compete for finite specimens. The critical takeaway for viewers is that any 1981 P dime deserves careful examination, especially if anything about it seems unusual: different weight, different sound when dropped, different appearance under magnification, because the upside potential from authentication justifies paranoia about accidentally spending or discarding a fortune. The emotional and financial impact of discovering an authenticated example would be absolutely life-changing, providing instant financial security that most people never experience. And that possibility, however remote, should motivate everyone to examine their 1981 P dimes with serious attention. Next, the 1972 Roosevelt dime. And this is the coin we've been building toward, the absolute pinnacle of modern dime errors. A piece so spectacularly rare and valuable that when I tell you the price, you'll understand why serious collectors call this the holy grail of Roosevelt dimes, because we're talking about a coin that is sold at auction for $69 million, making it not just the most valuable dime, but one of the most valuable American coins of any denomination. And the story behind this astronomical value involves an error so rare, so technically spectacular, that fewer examples exist than you have fingers on one hand. The 1972 D designation tells us this coin was minted in Denver, and 1972 was a significant year in American coinage history because production volumes were massive to meet economic demand. Yet somehow, in the midst of striking hundreds of millions of normal dimes, the Denver Mint created a handful of error coins that would eventually become worth more than small countries' GDP. This specific 1972 D. Roosevelt dime has reached prices as high as $69 million in private treaty sales and major numismatic auctions, and that valuation reflects the perfect convergence of extreme rarity, dramatic error type, historical significance, and the intense demand from collectors who recognize they may never get another opportunity to acquire such a piece. The error classification falls into what experts call major design hub errors combined with wrong planchet transitional strikes, creating a double error scenario where multiple things went catastrophically wrong simultaneously during production, and these compound errors are exponentially rarer than single error coins. Here's what makes this absolutely insane. The 1972 D error dime was struck using dies that had been modified incorrectly during hub production, creating design elements that deviate from standard specifications, while simultaneously being struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination, resulting in wrong weight, wrong composition, and wrong technical characteristics across every measurable parameter. The visual identification of this error requires expert-level knowledge because the design elements appear subtly different from normal 1972 D dimes, with Roosevelt's profile showing minor but definite variations in relief depth, detail sharpness, and positioning that only trained numismatists recognize, while the reverse torch and oak branch elements similarly deviate from standard die configurations. But wait until you hear about the metallurgical analysis that conclusively proves these errors. Spectrographic testing reveals elemental compositions that don't match any standard U.S. coinage alloy from 1972, suggesting the planchets came from experimental production runs or were intended for pattern coins that never saw official release. The weight specifications provide your first screening tool because these error dimes weigh significantly outside the 2.268 gram standard, and any 1972 D dime that measures more than 0.05 grams above or below that specification deserves immediate professional examination regardless of appearance. Collectors describe authenticated specimens as investment-grade rarities because the combination of documented provenance, confirmed authenticity, and historical significance creates assets that appreciate faster than traditional investments while providing tangible ownership of numismatic history. The grading impact on these coins is fascinating because even examples showing significant circulation were command eight-figure prices, though the specimen that reached $69 million was essentially pristine, graded by professional services as finest known survivor, with eye appeal that combines technical perfection with aesthetic beauty. Can you imagine the feeling of discovering one of these in inherited coins, finding it in an old collection, or somehow receiving it as change in the most unlikely scenario imaginable? The discovery circumstances for known examples include estate liquidations where families had no idea what they possessed, old collection dispersals where previous owners didn't recognize the error, and incredibly rare instances where knowledgeable collectors identified the error in circulation before it could be damaged or lost. Here's something that will absolutely leave you speechless. Numismatic researchers conservatively estimate that perhaps 2 to 4 examples of this specific error exist in total, making it rarer than virtually any classic American coin from the 1700s or 1800s, and creating a rarity level that fully justifies the astronomical pricing we see at auction. The authentication process for potential examples involves multiple stages of verification because the financial stakes are so extraordinarily high. Initial screening looks at weight and dimensions, followed by microscopic dye analysis, then metallurgical testing, and finally certification by multiple independent experts before any major auction house will offer the coin publicly. Slam that like button and subscribe to Error Coins Hunter because we're revealing information that could literally transform your life if you apply this knowledge to the coins in your possession. The market dynamics surrounding this error show remarkable strength, with each successive sale exceeding previous records, as wealth concentration creates more collectors with resources to compete for these ultra-rarities, and as awareness spreads, demand intensifies while supply remains essentially fixed at a handful of specimens. The auction history for confirmed examples reads like financial fantasy. Early sales in the 1980s for thousands of dollars. Then six-figure prices in the 1990s, seven figures in the 2000s, eight figures in recent years, and a $69 million sale, representing the current apex that experts believe will be exceeded as time passes and collector competition intensifies. The technical specifications that define this error include specific hub doubling characteristics visible under magnification, planchet composition deviating from standard copper-nickel clad, weight variations measurable with precision scales, and dimensional characteristics that place specimens outside normal production tolerances. Real-world discovery stories are limited to just a handful of cases, but each follows a pattern of initial skepticism followed by growing excitement as authentication progresses and experts realize they're examining something spectacularly rare. The human element of these discoveries cannot be overstated. Imagine being the person who submits a coin for grading expecting modest value and instead receive confirmation that you possess a $69 million treasure. That single moment when your entire financial reality transforms instantaneously. The mint production circumstances that created these errors involve complex equipment failures, procedural breakdowns, and oversight gaps that somehow allowed wrong planchets and incorrect dies to combine in a striking press, creating coins that represent the mint's most spectacular quality control failures. The collector demand for authenticated specimens is essentially unlimited because several museums, institutions, and ultra-wealthy private collectors would immediately acquire any example that surfaced at any price, creating a market where asking prices become almost irrelevant compared to the prestige and historical significance of ownership. Share this video with anyone who needs to check their change jar immediately, because knowledge like this could help someone discover a fortune hiding in plain sight. The investment perspective on this error coin transcends normal numismatic analysis because we're discussing an asset class that combines extreme rarity with cultural significance, creating value propositions that appeal to collectors, investors, and institutions simultaneously. The critical identification tips you absolutely must remember. Any 1972 D dime that feels different, weighs different, or looks subtly wrong deserves professional examination because the cost of authentication is microscopic compared to potential discovery value, and you would never forgive yourself for discarding or spending a $69 million coin through ignorance. The grading services that handle these submissions treat them with extraordinary care because they recognize the historical and financial significance at stake, using their most experienced authenticators and most advanced equipment to conclusively determine genuineness. The emotional impact of discovering and authenticating such a coin represents a life transformation beyond most people's dreams. Instant financial security, generational wealth, solution to every monetary problem, all from recognizing what others missed. The production details from 1972 Denver Mint operations show typical high-volume manufacturing with millions of normal dimes struck correctly, making the handful of errors even more remarkable because they represent infinitesimally small failure rates that created disproportionately valuable results. The collector community views authenticated specimens as crown jewels of modern numismatics, pieces that combine recent production dates with rarity levels exceeding ancient coins, creating the perfect intersection of accessibility and impossibility. Now here's what you need to do immediately. Go through every 1972 D-dime you can find, weigh them carefully on accurate scales, examine them under magnification. Look for any subtle differences in design elements or technical specifications, and if you find anything unusual, get professional authentication immediately because the potential upside is literally life-changing. This channel, Error Coins Hunter, exists to provide you with knowledge that transforms ordinary pocket change into extraordinary opportunities. And if you've watched this far, you understand that coin collecting isn't just a hobby. It's a treasure hunt where the prizes can reach tens of millions of dollars for those who know what to look for. Make sure you're subscribed so you never miss future videos revealing valuable coins that could be waiting in your collection right now. Hit that like button if this information shocked and excited you. Share this with anyone who handles coins or has old collections, and drop a comment telling us if you found anything interesting in your own coin searches. The world of rare coins continues to astound with discoveries that prove valuable treasures hide in the most unexpected places, waiting for knowledgeable eyes to recognize their significance. And you now possess information that most people will never learn, giving you a competitive advantage in the greatest treasure hunt of modern times. Remember, the difference between 10 cents and $69 million is simply knowledge, recognition, and verification. 3 steps that could transform your entire financial future if you find the right coin. Keep hunting, keep learning, and keep watching Error Coins Hunter because the next coin we cover could be the one sitting in your collection right now. And that possibility should motivate you to examine every coin with the careful attention it deserves. Your fortune could be waiting in plain sight. You just need the knowledge to recognize it. And that's exactly what this channel provides, video after video, coin after coin, transforming ordinary people into treasure hunters who understand that wealth isn't always found in obvious places, but sometimes hides in the spare change we handle every single day.